Welcome to LSC. It's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Kerri Kransnow, who is the trainer over at Kecoughtan High School. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad to get you in here. We ran into each other at the gym, and I got to thinking, we don't know enough about trainers and what they do and how they get hired by the school. But first of all, I want to learn a little bit about you. You did not grow up down here.
No.
You grew up where?
I grew up in Elliott, Maine, which is about an hour and a half north of Boston.
All right, so that means you were a Red Sox fan?
And a Patriots fan.
And a Patriots fan. But you grew up playing sports.
Yep.
Very involved in sports, but you played field hockey, which we have down here, but there was another sport you played that we don't do down here.
Right, I played lacrosse.
Talk a little bit how lacrosse is. Is that a running game very similar to soccer? I mean, it kind of keep you that kind of shape?
It does, and there's a big difference between men's lacrosse and women's lacrosse. Men's lacrosse looks like ice hockey on the field, which is a great, rough, aggressive game. Women's lacrosse looks more like traditional lacrosse that was played by the Native Americans, where there's no contact, there's no checking. It's a lot more about the running.
Okay, so you don't have the checking in that then?
Not in the women's lacrosse.
Okay, well that's good to know. I would have never known that. Okay, well, and then you graduated from high school and got recruited.
Yes.
But not in lacrosse, field hockey.
In field hockey. I did get recruited for lacrosse, but field hockey was my passion, and that's what I knew I wanted to play in college, so.
I talk a little bit about the recruiting process.
For me, I played club field hockey, so that's one way to get looked at. So I was going to various tournaments throughout the summer, throughout the winter when field hockey wasn't in season. And any coaches that I had any particular interest in their school, because they had an athletic training program, I made sure to contact them myself and say, hey, listen, I'm going to be at this tournament. This is my number. This is who I play for. I want you to look at me because I would like to potentially go to your school.
Okay, and you ended up not going anywhere in Maine, but you stayed with them.
Yes, at that time there were no schools in Maine that had athletic training as an undergraduate degree.
Right.
So I chose to look elsewhere, and Central Michigan had one of the top athletic training programs and a very good
Where
field
is
hockey
Central
program.
Michigan located?
It is in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, which is about 45 minutes north of Lansing and about 2.5 hours west of Ann Arbor.
Okay, because I grew up in the Midwest. I know a little bit about that, but never heard of Central Michigan. But that doesn't mean anything. I haven't heard a lot of things. Okay, so you got recruited, you go there, and you play 4 years.
I played 4
years. And
years.
what position did you play?
I was a goalie.
Goalie. And usually people think goalie's the tallest one out on the field, but it doesn't necessarily, you just have to be athletic.
You have to be athletic. It was a lot about short duration, quick burst, how much plyometric skill you have to be able to move. And in field hockey, the goalie has 16 yards where they can move in the circle. Anything outside of that, they become a regular field player, and with that much equipment, it's just not efficient. So
Right.
Short, fast movement.
Yeah, well, and the safety of the players is paramount in any sport, as you saw, as we'll talk a little bit about when we get into your athletic training. So you got your degree at Central Michigan, and what did you get your degree in then?
I got my degree in athletic training and sports medicine in 2005.
Okay, and from there, you didn't come south.
No.
You went east.
Yes.
To New York
Yes.
City.
Yep. I figured I couldn't take another cornfield. The Midwest was gorgeous. The people were very nice, but I couldn't take another cornfield. So I wanted to see how close I could get to New York City, and I was lucky enough to find a job.
But you worked in Queens and in Manhattan.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that experience.
It was a little bit different experience. Athletic trainers in that area are very much controlled by private clinics. So right now, working for the hospital, I work for Sentara Hospital. I have the backup support of the hospital for when I'm at the school. In New York, it's very much how much income can you bring into that particular physical therapy clinic or that particular individual that you're working for. So it's a little bit different progression, a little bit different sports that you're dealing with. In New York, lacrosse is huge, and also basketball. So those are your two main seasons, whereas football in New York is not big because very few schools have enough field space for them.
Right. So when did you find out, or that you knew that's what you wanted to do? Was this something that you knew in high school, or?
I knew right after my freshman year of high school, I had severely sprained my ankle, and I was going to a field hockey camp. And they're like, you know what, let's have you check in with the athletic trainer and make sure that you're taken care of. So I went in that, and I actually got to see them draining a nail, which probably sounds like a horrific, disgusting thing, and I was like, that's so cool, I want to do that. So from about my sophomore year of high school on, I knew that I wanted to do athletic training.
Okay, so now in New York City, you're with private.
Yeah, working
Okay,
privately.
and you were there how many years?
I was there for 5 years.
Okay. And from there, did you come down here to the peninsula?
Yes, I was.
How did you get here?
I was actually looking to get out of New York City. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go, but at that time I was very involved with jiu-jitsu, and there was a women's jiu-jitsu camp in Richmond. And I went down to that, and I'm like, wow, Virginia's really nice. Like, the people down here were nice. There was a lot of space. All the facilities down here for everything were gorgeous. So I started looking at applying to jobs down here.
Okay. So, but you also went online and got your master's degree.
Yes, I knew I wanted to continue my education. 70% of athletic trainers in the field have master's degrees. It's one way that we promote the field, and that we're saying, hey, listen, we've gone through this education. We want to be at the top of our field. And I looked to get my master's degree, and I chose to get it in psychology.
Okay, you got in psychology and sports psychology,
Yeah.
right? Now, you talked about jiu-jitsu. That's what got you down to the Richmond
Yes.
area. What got you to Peninsula?
It was the option of jobs. There were a few jobs at CHKD. There were a few jobs through the Navy. I made multiple interviews down here, and I chose Centera because of the facilities, because of the backup, and what they can offer the athletic trainers.
Right, which you didn't have in New York City, so that really makes a difference. Now, when you got the job, do you immediately, did Scott immediately send you over to Kickotan? Was that your very first place you went?
Yes, I've been at Kickotan. This is my 4th year there. It was the first school I've worked with down here. I had been offered the job in August, and by the middle of September, I had moved down here and started working.
All right. Now, you were basically, as a trainer, just involved with football. Is that correct?
No, I cover all of the sports.
No, but I mean, you are contracted for all the
I'm
sports?
contracted for all 27 sports.
Okay, 27 sports.
Yes.
So you have to go to all of them? I mean, how do you have the time?
I cover all home sporting events, and I travel with varsity football. And a lot of times when teams make playoffs, I will travel with them because it's a fun experience. It's great for the kids when they're stepping up to a higher level of play to have somebody there that they know they can trust if something goes wrong medically.
Right. Now, in football, one of the main things that they're concentrating on is the concussion.
Yes.
And what do you look for when a guy comes in or the coach says, I need you to check him out because he got his bell rung?
Yeah. It's basically right now I know most of the kids, most of my seniors I've had since they were freshmen, so I have the ability to say, you know what, he's not acting how he usually does, or something is just wrong. And if it's somebody new coming in or it's an 8th grade JV player that I've never seen before, we concentrate a lot on testing their cognitive function, testing memory recall, testing their balance to say, you know what, anything that falls outside what is normal, he needs to be tested, he needs to be seen by a doctor.
And then he's got to be cleared by the doctor before you will even tell the coach that he's available.
Well, with Hampton City Schools, we have a 5-step program where we use what's called an impact concussion testing. We do baseline testing for all contact sports, and then we'll compare after an athlete has had a concussion and they've become symptom-free. We compare their scores to see how their reaction time has changed, if there's something on there that triggers. Maybe they're acting a little slower, maybe they're saying they have more symptoms. That's the first step. They have to get a doctor's clearance. They have a 6-step protocol of getting back into play where we start off with, okay, can we have you just run? Can you elevate your heart rate without having any more symptoms come back? And then we get them into running drills where they're not contacted, but it's a little more intense. And that we do 6 steps of that, and then the athletic trainer has the final clearance to say, okay, they've been through all of this, they've cleared everything, the doctor's cleared them, their impact scores have returned to normal, they're cleared to go back to play.
Now, I assume you get a lot of sprains and that sort of thing, but what was probably the biggest injury that you've had to deal with since you've been at Kickotan?
At Kickotan, the first 2 years I was at Kickotan, I had to call the ambulance 5 times. So we've had various injuries. We had one basketball player that basically dislocated his patella, which is your kneecap, and the way the muscle around it tore. When we got to him, his kneecap was up in the middle of his thigh. And his knee, you could see where the bones were through the skin, and his coach was there sitting right next to him with his coach had his head on the floor, like talking to him. I'm like, oh, that's great. I find out afterwards that the coach had to put his head on the ground because he thought he was going to pass out. So, whereas I'm like, okay, this is great. This is an emergency that I can handle. Sometimes other people don't stomach it as well.
Well, you see, you've got a lot of enthusiasm, so I know you like this, but we'll kind of wrap this up. But if you were talking to some young ladies and you wanted to talk about playing sports and possibly going into medicine like you're doing with as a trainer and the psychology of it and everything, what would you say to them?
I would say first, if they want to be an athletic trainer, they have to go to an accredited university. There's a limited number of accredited universities, and to become an athletic trainer, you have to pass through one of those, and you have to take a national exam, which there are universities in every city, every town around here. We've got, right now, I think, more than 12 universities in Virginia. Look outside the state. But if they want to get recruited also, especially for female athletes, they have to step up and they have to say, you know what, coach, this is what I'm looking at. This is the degree I want to get, because there isn't an opportunity for professional sports. There is professional women's basketball, but it's not making a living.
Right.
They need to be able to say, you know what, I can play for 4 years in college, but after I graduate, I'm going to have a profession in something that's going to earn me money, that's going to make me happy, and I'm going to enjoy what I do.
You seem to enjoy it.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in. I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Kerri Kransnow. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Till next time.